Thanks to everyone for joining us today for our new series, Learn About Law Services. Today, we're going to be talking about the details on our Foreclosure Prevention Unit and our Civil Unit in Nassau County, which does eviction prevention. So please just throughout the presentation, if you could keep your microphone muted. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat and raise your hand. This, this is going to be a more casual conversation and presentation. So definitely feel free to raise your hand and I'll call on you if you have any questions throughout. Just a little bit about Nassau Suffolk Law Services in case you're unfamiliar. We are Long Island's largest civil legal services provider. We handle over 6,000 legal cases every year, including direct representation, phone consultations, brief service or referrals. We have offices in Hempstead, Islandia, and Riverhead. And our case handling staff include attorneys, paralegals, and social workers. And we have partnerships with community agencies, which we'll discuss today. These are our offices and phone numbers. And then just so everybody knows, if you do want a copy of the presentation, just put your email in the chat, or you can email me separately. I'll put my email in the chat and just let me know if you want a copy of the presentation. It's not very long, but if you want the slides, I'll definitely send them to you. So we have over 20 different units at our organization, including units specializing in family law, disability and health related projects, whether it be mental health or disability advocacy. We have our housing units, which we'll be discussing today, foreclosure, civil unit, and then we have other specialized units, including consumer debt, our veterans' rights, our re-entry project, public benefits, our senior citizen project in Nassau County, and all of these and the details of each are listed on our website, which is nslawservices.org. And our legal support center for advocates is specifically for advocates, including social workers, caseworkers, folks who work for an elected official or a government agency, a church. If anyone has any questions, let's say their client is facing a food stamp denial or an eviction, feel free to give us a call, either myself or my colleague Kathy Lucidi, and you can ask your question, whether or not our organization will handle such a case, or if you have a legal question for your client, feel free to give us a call and we'll help you out and point you in the right direction. Other things that we do is host community trainings. We publish our newsletters. We send out emails with advocacy tips every month. And we, of course, have our website, nslawservices.org, where we have self-help referrals. We have listing of all of our trainings, even our past trainings, information on all of our different units as well. And then just a little advertisement. This week on Thursday, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we are doing an overview of mental health housing on Long Island with one of our supervising attorneys, Paolo Arango, and that's on Thursday at 1 o'clock. So if you are interested, feel free to sign up and see you on Thursday. And then, although we're not going to be really going over legal information today, of course, if any legal information is discussed today, that's just, we always try to keep that up to date, and it's not legal advice. Legal advice is dependent upon the specific facts of each situation. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my colleague and supervising attorney, Mike Wigatal. He's the supervising attorney for the Foreclosure Prevention Unit. And I'm going to pass it off to you, Mike. So if you just want to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you, Sharon, and good afternoon, everyone. So the Foreclosure Prevention Project is a unit that's been with Law Services since 2008, back when the financial crisis, ancient times hit. We have 5 staff attorneys and 2 paralegals, is in the unit that I supervise in both counties. We have attorneys in all 3 of our offices here where I am in Hempstead, and also in Islandia and Riverhead. And we provide services at every level of the foreclosure process. And in foreclosures in New York State, they take place in the state's Supreme Court, which is actually not the highest court in New York State. It's the highest trial court. And so when a mortgage entity is bringing a foreclosure action or other types of foreclosures, including tax lien foreclosures or condominium foreclosures, they're all brought in the Supreme Court in both Nassau and Suffolk County. And under law that was enacted back in 2008, 2009, there's a requirement that all residential foreclosures where the home is occupied by the borrower who's facing foreclosure, they're entitled to a mandatory settlement conference. So, and the purpose of the mandatory settlement conference is for the parties to negotiate in good faith a possible settlement that would avoid foreclosure. And a lot of our practice is spent in this settlement conference to try to negotiate with the various tools that are available to us, both under federal law and state law, and also industry practice. We're part, but even though, so that's where we spend most of our time, but there's also a lot of motion practice involved in foreclosures that would happen if the settlement could not be achieved. And we help at various stages. And because even though there are, as I said, 5 attorneys, it's a drop in the bucket of what the need is for the thousands upon thousands of homeowners that are currently pending in foreclosure or facing imminent foreclosure due to a default in making payments. We can't represent, obviously, every one of them. So we sort of triage to some extent. We do provide limited services in addition to extensive services. So we will assist in drafting answers for homeowners to complaints. And we would also help them sometimes in limited aspects with motions. And on occasion, we'd also take on appeals when the case doesn't go well in Supreme Court. We're part of a broader statewide network that's funded through the New York State Attorney General's Office, the Homeowner Protection Program known as HOP. And on Long Island, there are other providers that are both housing counseling agencies and legal service providers that assist the same population. And we work somewhat loosely, but sometimes more definitively with these programs. So we might get a referral from a housing counseling agency to assist homeowners in the legal aspects while they work on seeking what is known as loss mitigation, usually through a loan modification that would alter the terms of the mortgage to make it more affordable for the homeowner / borrower to continue to afford to make the payments and remain in their homes. We don't have a specific income guideline for this particular project. Our funder, New York State, doesn't want that, or it hasn't imposed that on us in this particular unit. We do set a priority, again, because of our ability to, meet the needs of everyone who would seek our services, which are free. And so we prioritize homeowners whose incomes are at or below 80% of the median income. And that's a soft cap, if you will. And I think the current numbers are roughly around like 68,000 for a single individual to upwards of 96,000 for a family of 4. And I think Vivian has just added the actual numbers in the chat if people are interested. But again, that's a soft guide. If people come to us and they're slightly above that, depending on the circumstances and our availability, we would certainly work with them. I don't know if there are any questions. I haven't been focusing on the chat all that much, so I don't know if my time is up. Or
Your
you want me to
time's
just
set up. If if anyone has any questions for Mike about the foreclosure prevention unit.
I mean, the network is also, this has been, so going back 15 years now, and, the other agencies that are involved are uniformly nonprofit organizations. And, we work well with them. There are occasionally community outreach programs that we're involved in with them, where we try to reach out to homeowners to give advice and guidance and possibly take on providing services. So if anybody has any questions, even not now, but in the future, please feel free to reach out.
So I have a question, Mike. So in the event someone's house is up for auction, is that something you will get involved with?
We could get involved, yes. So auction would be at the end of the foreclosure process, meaning that the court has granted what's called a judgment of foreclosure and sale. And oftentimes homeowners have not appeared in the action officially. They've not answered the complaint and or appeared otherwise in the action. Sometimes they could have appeared at these mandatory settlement conferences, but that's not a technical appearance in terms of answering the allegations that the plaintiff is making to get the relief. And so people come to us at various stages, and if they come to us with an auction date, usually they'll get 30 days notice of the scheduled auction. In Nassau County, the auctions take place in the Supreme Court. In Suffolk County, they take place at the town halls for each town. But they're administered by a court-appointed referee usually, and we could get involved. And what we could do is make a motion to the court when warranted to try to at least get a temporary stay of the sale to try to see, and then potentially even get the judgment vacated. They're very complicated and difficult because by the time it gets to that stage, we're usually talking about years down the road. So sorting through years of procedural history and non-payment, makes it not an easy thing to overcome, but that is a possibility, sure.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Of course, if you think of anything else, feel free to email me afterwards and I'll pass it along to Mike. All right, so thanks so much, Mike. Thanks for all the information. And now I'm going to introduce Vivian Storm and Dan Strafer, the supervising, Mike is also supervising attorney of the civil unit, but Vivian and Dan are the other supervising attorneys of the Nassau County Civil Unit. So I'm going to pass it off to you both.
Right now, the civil unit is available to represent any low-income tenant in Nassau County across all of the courts where evictions take place. We have a partnership with the Empire Justice Center. And if someone is not eligible for law services because of immigration status, we can provide a connection to the Empire Justice Center so that that tenant is also able to receive assistance. The income limit for our service is now the HUD low income limit, which is 80% of the area median income. Those are the numbers that I put into the chat previously. And just as Mike was describing, it goes up to a little bit over 96,000 for a family of 4. That income limit may be subject to change back down to the 200% of the federal poverty limit, but at least for the time being, we're able to represent all low-income tenants who are requesting assistance. I am working in the Glen Cove and Long Beach City Courts. Dan Strafer does in-court intake in the Hempstead District Court, and Mike supervises intake of tenants in the office. In addition to representing people in evictions, we're also able to assist low-income households who are experiencing problems with federal subsidized housing programs. That may be something like the Section 8 housing choice vouchers, administrative hearings, or issues with public housing, or project-based Section 8 vouchers. If needed, we may also be able to bring affirmative litigation in state Supreme Court or federal district court, or to assist with appeals following evictions. We do handle intake in 3 different ways. Essentially, either tenants can call into our office, in which case they would be screened by the unit that Mike supervises. Unless they happen to live in Glen Cove or Long Beach, and then the call would come to me and to my unit. If people haven't connected with law services for whatever reason, they didn't know that there was assistance available, they didn't anticipate that they were going to need assistance once they got to court, then they can go to Dan if their case is being heard in Hempstead District Court, or they can find me or one of my colleagues in Glen Cove or in Long Beach City Courts. In Glen Cove and Long Beach, since those cities are a little bit farther from our offices in Hempstead, I'm available to meet with tenants in the local libraries or at other community locations like the Glen Cove Senior Center, because I know that particularly in those outlying areas, just getting to our office can be a significant barrier to getting representation for a low-income tenant. Dan, I don't know if you or Mike want to add more about the distinctions between your unit and how I'm operating.
Yep, I think that was pretty thorough. Yeah, so my unit's there every day. Basically, the only parameters in terms of who we represent is the income and the citizenship status. And like Vivian stated, if they don't have status, then we refer them to Empire Justice. And then the only other parameter is income. And so if if they are not, if they are qualified, then we generally like to try to represent them. In terms of referring cases, if someone has a court date and they don't have an attorney, then you can refer them to go to the court, and then we'll be there. And we can do an intake for them there.
So Deborah, you have a question?
Yes, I'm in Long Beach, actually. I work the homeless liaison for our district. Vivian, what is your number? Because yes, families would be able to meet you at the local library. A lot of families don't have transportation because we're kind of on the beach. Where can families find you?
So the best thing to do is to call me directly. I can be reached at 516-292-8100. Extension 3309.
Great, thank you.
If people call into our front desk, they'll be placed onto our general civil unit intake queue. And as long as they identify that they are a resident of Long Beach and flag that for the receptionist, then the call will also get routed to me. Then I can follow up and either provide assistance over the phone if that's what someone needs, or I can make an arrangement to meet with somebody in person at a location that's convenient to them. I'm in Long Beach. I try to be there every day that there's an eviction taking place. If I happen to know that there's a tenant who's decided for whatever reason that they don't want assistance from our office, or they're already represented by a private attorney, I may not be there. So I can also be found in court on the mornings of eviction cases, but because I'm also covering Glen Cove, people should do their best to make contact with me before their court date. But it just makes it easier to prepare as well as them being more confident that they'll have assistance.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I actually have a question for Deborah. Is your office in City Hall?
No, I'm actually located in one of the schools. I'm a school social worker. I'm the homeless liaison for the district.
If it would be helpful, I'd love to come drop off some of the brochures.
That'd be great. Yeah. I'll call you and we'll figure
Okay.
it out.
Perfect.
Thank
I'll
you.
be in Long Beach tomorrow and Thursday as well this week.
Okay, beautiful.
Awesome. And I'm glad we made that connection. Or does anyone else have any other questions? I have a question then. If, let's say a tenant has not received our assistance and has a warrant of eviction, the sheriff's about to come, is there anything that you all can do at that point?
Sometimes, we could help them evaluate the case and help them with an order to show cause. Yeah, sometimes.
So they
we'll
should
do-
still call and see if there's anything that
Yeah.
we can do.
Right,
Don't give up.
I'd suggest if somebody has just received a 14-day notice from the sheriff's office that they should certainly call our office to get guidance on how likely an order to show cause might be to be successful, what to put into an order to show cause. We would take orders to show cause for representation on a case-by-case basis. And sometimes one of the deciding factors is how much time there is for someone to actually get us the relevant information and paperwork. If somebody's on day 13 of a 14-day notice from the sheriff's office, then they probably don't want to wait to speak to us. They should just go to court and file what they can at that point, because at that point, just getting something into the court is going to be more important than getting the perfect paperwork into the court.
And if I could just add to what Vivian just said, the key, generally speaking, I could speak more to district court. Vivian might be able to share with Long Beach and Glen Cove, although I don't think it's that much different. But usually when, and the procedure is to submit what's called an order to show cause to the court, asking the judge to sign an order stopping the eviction, at least temporarily. And when that document is filed with the clerk's office at the court, usually they'll respond within a 24-hour period, where it'll go through the law department, and then ultimately a judge would entertain the order, at least at its initial stage. And so people who come to us like on the 13th day, and there's not enough time for them to come to our office and for us to evaluate and draft, they should be advised to go to the courthouse to submit an order to show cause. The court has form documents that they could submit. And what would be crucial, if you have people you're working with, for them to bring the 14-day notice from the sheriff with them to the courthouse and attach it as a copy to the order to show cause and alert the clerk that they got the 14-day notice. The date will be on it, so the court will at least be aware that the eviction by the sheriff could take place as early as the next day, for example, and hopefully they would put that at the top of the pile.
Great. Thanks so much to you all for all that valuable information. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Please ignore the upcoming presentations on the side there. I just noticed that those are the wrong dates. Those are from the past. But like I said before, we do have our mental health housing presentation on Thursday. And if you have any other questions, if you're an advocate, feel free to give us a call, or if you have a client who needs assistance right away, definitely call the Hempstead office. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.